passion for Scotland and whiskey, but this is on a pure Turkish product that you all know, Rakı. So I don't know if, yes, so thank you so much, Burkay, for this, because you know that in the world of drinks, everybody's interested to what the others are doing, and you are the one explaining it the better, with lots of anecdotes, tastings, pairings, and the stunning photographies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great introduction. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here. Last night I received the award for Best Whiskey Book in the previous selection. It's the first time I'm on the stage as a speaker, and I'm really excited, so just bear with me. Today I'm going to talk about my newest book. It's Rakı. I started as a whiskey writer, whiskey author. Yesterday I got an award for my Scotland guidebook, but today I'm going to present you our national spirit, Rakı. I put the name, the title, History in a Bottle, because starting from the Ottoman period, it's the most widely drunk spirit in our lands, in Anatolia. Ottoman Empire was much bigger, of course, but nowadays, you know, in Anatolia, it is the highest selling and drunk spirit. I'm a whiskey and distilled spirits author. I started as a whiskey author. 5-6 years ago, I published my first book, I received the Best in the World award. It was so motivating and encouraging for me, and I kept on writing. So today, first I will talk about my spirits writing journey a little bit, the impact of Gourmand awards, and then I will briefly summarize my book about the history of Rakı, how it's produced. So I have 4 published books in 5 years. I believe I published like 1,200 pages in 4 books over the last 5 years. I've been non-stop writing, and I'm going to publish my next book in October, thanks to Gourmand and Mr. Edward Contro, because this is great encouragement to be up here with all these authors and publishing experts. The first one was a whiskey book. It was the first whiskey book over 30 years, and 30 years ago, around 1990s, when I was a medical student, there was this small manual on whiskey, which started my love for whiskey, but I wanted something more comprehensive, talking about all the regions, how it's produced, and the first book that I will show you in a couple of minutes was a huge success, and it became a bestseller book, and I wasn't really expecting this, because it was the first you know, hardcover, glossy spirits book in Turkey, and quite expensive in that sense. Then during the pandemic, I wrote Kadehte, from the still to the glass. I started to research on all distilled spirits, and that means tequila, cognac, rum, whiskey, vodka, gin, whatever you think, the distilled spirits, and of course Rakı was a part of this second book. This sparked my interest in Rakı history and Ottoman history, of course, and when you will see in a couple of minutes, when you talk about Rakı, you cannot separate it from the table. So I started to read also the culinary history of Istanbul and Anatolia to understand what happened, you know, with Rakı over time. My third book was, you know, my love letter to Scotland. Like I said last night, I go to Scotland every year 4 or 5 times. I organize tours to Ireland, Scotland, US, whiskey tours, tasting tours, and I visited over 60 distilleries over time, and I just wanted to write this guidebook for people who want to go to Scotland, so it's the first Turkish guide on Scotland. And the last one that I'm going to present today is recently published. It's Kadehte Rakı Beyazı, which means Rakı white in the glass, and it's one of the, you know, most comprehensive Rakı books, and it's the only, you know, again, hardcover glossy paper, like a good quality cookbook. Actually, I will show you in a minute that my publisher was really instrumental in publishing all these, and it all started with my first book, Angel's Share, just on whiskey. Then during the pandemic, you know, I published my first, it was a funny story. I published my first book, I did 2 book signings, I'm so excited, you know, it's my baby, and pandemic started, COVID started. And I said, okay, people, my followers over Instagram, right, you know, how can we get signed copies? We want you to sign it. I said, you know, we have to stay home, so I cannot sign it, I cannot do book signings. Then I thought maybe I can start an e-commerce website so people can, you know, order online and write their names, for example, dear Ahmed, dear Ayşe, and I write on their names and just send over mail. That started an e-commerce business, which is now, you know, one of the largest e-commerce websites selling all kinds of drinks, books, drinks, accessories, glasses, you know, carafes and decanters, that kind of, you know, accessories. Then came Altın Peşinde, the Scotland Guide, and the last book, Kadehte Rakı Beyazı. This is a 3.5 years research. You know, writing is a non-stop thing. You always read, I always read different references. I go through archives, I go through different articles, theses to find bits and pieces of information, and at the end actually you connect those things as a puzzle and the book comes out. So at the moment, for example, my first book 5 years ago was just one project, but now I'm working on 2-3 other projects. And I'm honored to see my name on the special awards list this year. I want to talk about a little bit about my publishing journey because actually I'm a medical doctor. I'm an anesthesiologist and intensive care specialist. For 20 years I worked in pharma companies. And back in 2019 I said enough with pharma, enough with corporate world. I want to just retire and early retire and just give whiskey education, write about whiskey, because I'm a whiskey blogger. I started 12 years ago as a whiskey blogger, the first Turkish whiskey blogger. And at one point, you know, my life was half whiskey, so I said, okay, it's now time to just write books and educate people. And since I'm an anesthesiologist turned to spirits author, I always make the same bad joke. I put my entire career on making people sleep. So now I'm a spirits writer full-time. I give trainings, I organize tours, and mostly tastings in Istanbul. And I'm an independent educator. That is important because all spirits companies, all wine companies, they have a brand ambassador who talk about their product. But we have just very few, only select, you know, 2-3 people, you know, talking about all brands. In that sense, I believe I'm doing a good job. And I just recently learned that it's gotten the best of the best status. That's also something very honoring for me. That year I couldn't come to Gourmand, so I saw this best of the best in the world for me, and I literally cried at home. I couldn't come to the ceremony. The next year was the pandemic, and I was working on this book. After the pandemic, there were some still restrictions and some visa problems, so I missed that year also. I saw this slide on the Instagram Live, and I was so excited. I didn't cry, but I was so excited to see it on the Instagram Live. It was a great recognition for me. And then over the years, different books came. I wanted to show you this because it shows what a good publisher can do for an author. You know, I was working in pharma, I was a hobby spirits writer, and actually it's just coincidence. The month that I left corporate world, Epsilon Publishing Group, which is the 5th biggest publishing group in Turkey, invited me, and they said, we want to start a food and cookbook category. Good quality, hardcover, glossy paper category, and we want you to write drink books. I was so surprised, and I said, okay, you're taking a big chance on me because Epsilon is a literary publisher. They are the publisher of Harper Lee, they are the publisher of George R.R. Martin, you know, different famous authors and writers, and you know, translate them to Turkish. They publish around 300 books a year. So it's a huge publishing company, and they took a chance on me to start this series. Of course, they were very happy when the sales were great, and because it reached bestseller status in quite some time. And we, with the marketing team, we said, okay, let's do something first, and let's do pre-sales. Just, in 2 hours, if you get the book, it will be signed by the author. So in 2 hours, we received 1,000 orders, and it has to go that day. So, for example, the launch of my book, that day I signed 1,200 copies in 3 hours, just standing like this, just not sitting, but, going around the book table. But it was a great start. And then they really, helped me support with good editors, Yasemin Özel, Nurcan Kara, I have to tell their names, or Çağla Yön for the mise-en-page, for the page design and illustrations, or İrem Sonay who did the illustrations for my book. We always talk about ourselves, it's an ego thing, being on the stage to receive an award or talk about our book, but it's a teamwork, so we need to always recognize all the people working behind it. My publisher, when we received the Gourmand Awards, they said, do you want posters or billboards so that we, make the communication out of it? I said, of course, why not? And this became another push, almost like, how can I say, a second launch, a relaunch of the book. It was going well, but of course in every book cycle there's a, the sales go down, but when we receive a Gourmand Award, they made these posters and thousands of them were in Istanbul streets. So I forgot to put it in the slide deck, but I made it out of that game. I said, if you see my poster on the street, on the walls, just take a selfie and I'll send you a signed copy. So all my readers, they were out in Istanbul trying to find the posters, but there were thousands of them. I couldn't go out in my neighborhood for 1 week because everywhere it was my face. It was so embarrassing. But in that sense, I have to say Gourmand Awards is not just encouraging for a writer, but it's great for the publisher to continue writing and for their sales and marketing, how can I say, efforts. So Gourmand is a really important thing for food and spirits writing. I will talk about my book a little bit. You can see it in the Turkey to Turkey table, or up there in the other selection of books. I just wanted to first teach people how rakı is produced. Rakı is a very traditional drink. Everybody knows it. Everybody drinks. After the age of 18, if you ask someone in Turkey, have you tried rakı, you will get the results. Yes. Everybody drinks it, but when you ask, how it is produced, you cannot sometimes get an answer. So first I wanted to start with that. And actually I get my book ideas sometimes from the social media. I'm very active on Instagram and Twitter. So whenever I write something, someone writes me back. Or during my tasting events, I talk about drinks and they ask me a question and it goes, okay, I need to write about this. So actually the spark of this book is a simple tweet that says, oh my God, is rakı produced out of grapes? And I was like, are you kidding? We are drinking this drink for 600, 700 years and you don't know it's a grape distillate? So I said, okay, let me start with that. And I talked about the process starting from the grapes. Grape and wine is Anatolian culture, starting from Göbekli Tepe, Karahantepe. All the archaeological findings show that we had a wine and beer culture for many thousand years, long before the spirits. So Anatolia has this wine culture, and we have some indigenous wineries and wine grape varieties like Boğazkere, Küzgözü, and they are used to make rakı. It all started in simple distillation procedures back in Khorasan in 900. 1000. Back then it wasn't just doing for alcohol to drink, but then it's evolved in that sense. And in every country, wherever the food is there, for example, we had lots of grapes in our soil, so wine and rakı, flourished. In Russia, they had grains, potatoes, so vodka flourished. So in tequila, in Mexico, they had the plants, the agave plants, so they used that to create alcohol. So it's actually a food process, it's an agricultural process. And it is distilled. First you make wine. You make a simple wine, the wine that we know. But those wines that are created are then put into stills, copper stills, so just like other drinks, and it is distilled once. And during the second distillation, they put anise. Anise is, has great properties. For many years it was used as for medicinal purposes and other purposes, and of course the aroma of anise was, great. And starting from 1700s in the Ottoman period, we started to see anise-flavored grape distillates. So this is actually the start of the process. In my book, I listed all rakıs in the market. That was so difficult because spirits companies are all very competitive and they don't want to give their, how many distillation, how many, which kind of anise they use, or these are technical details they don't want to give. I said, okay, I'm writing about all rakıs and I want you to give this information. So it was a bit difficult, but I collected data from 60 different brands. It all started in the Ottoman Empire. Of course, I need to read about culinary culture because I need to see, rakı on the table. Our biggest issue in culinary sense is, at those times, because of the effect of Islam, paintings were forbidden in Turkey. So we don't have many paintings like in Europe with, the drinks, the wine, how can I say, animals that are, killed for sports purposes, or that kind of painting culture never flourished. So we have some miniatures where we understand. I know I passed my time, so I will make it quick. When we look at 1600s, 1700s, the mezes are really limited. In that sense, I need to also make a research on the ingredients that can be found at a certain time in a certain geography. So, for example, in Istanbul there was abundance of fish, so we had fish mezes. There were a large population of Armenians. Nowadays the population is much smaller, but Armenian mezes like topik was part of the rakı table. Or chickpeas, like sometimes also aromatized with different aromatizers. I like this table. This is one of my tables. Every summer we have tables like this. Nowadays, Istanbul, if you ever came to Istanbul or planning to come to Istanbul, is a gastronomy festival. Every table is a festival, and it's an amalgam of a combination of all the surrounding geographies. You can see Arabic, Lebanese, Balkan, all kinds of mezes just coming together in our table. And rakı is one of the only spirits in the world that needs a table like this. So you can never drink rakı like whiskey or like other drinks or like tequila shot or something like that. You can't drink it. You have to set a table. You need to start to eat white cheese, other cheeses or these kind of mezzes, and then comes dinner or whatever you want to continue. Sometimes we just continue all night with these mezzes. It was, I had to read Ottoman literature to get some data about rakı and wine culture back in the 1700s. There's a group of poets who wrote about, in Ottoman language. They write about, the meyhanes, which are the meze houses, and the drinks that were drunk at that period. Over time, we had many brands. 1880s is the first branded rakı in Turkey. Then over time, the culture is there was a little bit of shift, and then the Turkish Republic is founded, and Ottoman Empire was no more. And as part of the strategy of this new country, it became monopolized. That means all these brands gone out of existence. Only 4 brands remained until 2004. So in Turkey for 65, 70 years, starting from 1930s to 2004, we had only 4 brands. Then the law changed and they said now private rakıs can come into place, and in 20 years we had 60 different brands. Some are double distilled, some are cast, some are just coupage, or some are monocepage, the grape and the region. So the variety changed a lot. My last slides, when you prepare a book on rakı production, different rakıs and everything, you can't leave mezes out of it. So I asked a chef friend of mine to give me some meze recipes, and Emine gave me 30 recipes. So you can see they're in Turkish, but we have Lebanese culture, or more Aegean culture mezes in the book. Cocktails, it's very difficult to prepare a cocktail with rakı because of the anise flavor. But I asked again a bartender who is a very knowledgeable bartender. He's been promoting Turkey in this bartender scene for many years, and Fatih Akar'dan provided me some cocktails. For example, he puts tahini and rakı in the blender and just mix it, so it's almost like a liquid dessert. And he puts pistachio on the rim instead of sugar or salt. Or he uses dates to create this kind of cocktail. So, as I said, rakı always needs a bit table with friends, and we always enjoy drinking rakı with a couple of friends, and that kind of culture is essential to Turkey. We have, of course, other drinks, tequilas, whiskeys, and everything, but rakı is a drink that captures the spirit of Turkey in just one table. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bulgay. And we stay in Turkey for the mysterious journey of whiskey.